so we are now live on YouTube. We're going to end this straight away because this is not the official broadcast. We're just testing out some stuff and seeing where the problem is. And as it seems to be, the problem is actually in Facebook. So we're going to try to solve that now. So we're going to go offline and don't worry, we'll be right. Okay guys, it seems we have solved the problem. We don't have any issues anymore. So let's see if we're live on Facebook and if we're live on YouTube, and it seems that it's working. Now, what did I change? Absolutely nothing. So that's what's driving me nuts. So we are duocasting on both Facebook and YouTube, and the thing is that should work because we're using an RTM server. However, sometimes we do get these weird errors that we have like an audio encoder running, which we don't, and all that other kind of stuff. But it seems to be working now. So, okay. So tonight we have a very special episode of Digital Classroom, namely for our friends from X-rite. And you know X-rite, they're all about color. So tonight's episode is 100% about color. It's 100% about what you can do with color, how you can achieve cool colors in Photoshop or Lightroom, and of course how you can use the color checker in your normal workflow. But I'm also going to show you my setup, which you see actually behind here. And we have somebody from Portugal. Hello, Paulo. Parriera, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. So we are monitoring the chat at YouTube at the moment because I'm alone. I can't monitor both YouTube and Facebook, so that's going to be a little bit of a problem. Okay, so I want to show you the setup very quickly, and tonight we're going to show you that even more. So as you can see here, we have our Wacom Cintiq and we have the BenQ monitor. And one of the most important things for me is actually that while you're doing your editing, you have to make sure that your colors are correct. The cool thing is, if you see that color, oh, I just see that I terribly pronounced somebody's name wrong. I'm so very sorry, Paolo. Oh, can I make it up to you? Yes? Maybe not. Okay, so anyway, so you have to make sure that your colors are correct. And one of the coolest things to do that is actually monitor that on a different screen. Now, as you can see, I have the Cintiq here and the BenQ there. Now, those two can be mirrored. And mirroring isn't that hard. You can do it in your own OS, of course, let's say Windows or Mac. The thing is, in Mac, it's a little bit weird to do it, but I'm going to show you very quickly a small tip to mirror two screens without affecting actually the other one. And we have Ireland online. Hello, Ireland. How are you? Okay, so I'm going to switch to my Mac Pro. 1, 2, and there we go. Isn't it magical? And I'm going to switch here. I'm going to show you very quickly a tip on how you can do this. So what you have to do is you go down here in your settings, in your system preferences. And of course, you already know that you can use display settings. Okay, and arrangement. And now as you can see, I have 3 screens, but I only have those 2 mirrored. Now, how do you do that? Very simple. You hold the Alt key. And now you can actually see that you don't see all my screens anymore. And that's because, of course, I'm now on a different screen. So I'm back again. I hope, let's see on which screen I have to be. I have to be on this screen, and there we go. Okay, so now what you have to do is hold the Alt key in a Mac and just drag it over like this. And now I have mirrored my screens again. You still can't see it because, well, I mixed up all my screens now. So let's see, let's get that back for you guys. There we go. So by holding the Alt key, let's switch back to my camera very quickly. Okay. So by holding the Alt key, you can actually drag 2 screens on top of each other. And that's really handy because now I can actually make sure that my BenQ is mirrored on my Cintiq. So I can retouch on my Cintiq and I can still do my whole checking on the BenQ. The other cool thing is that screen, the third one, can actually still be used as a normal screen, meaning I can watch, what I normally do is I watch, for example, History Channel or whatever. I just use that screen. Okay, so let's take this one down. So now I have a mirrored screen. And let's start up Lightroom. And there we go. Now let's see if everything still works, because sometimes that can be a little bit of a trouble. And tonight what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show you a few cool tricks about how you can add color in Lightroom. But most of all, how you can do it in Photoshop. And I'm going to use some images. I'm going to show you that very quickly. So we have some images over here, which are actually my slideshow images. And let me switch to my screen so you can actually see what I'm doing. It's always handy to see, of course, and switch to another camera. Okay, there we go. That's much better. So we're going to show you some images. For example, we have some stark black and whites, and why did I create this in black and white? But most of all, it's about color. And you might say, well, black and white isn't really color. It is, because it's actually not just taking away color. So we're going to show you that tonight. And we're actually going to show you how to do intense colors like this image. And this image, how to do colors like this, how to make images pop. So it's going to be a real interesting webinar for all you guys out there that love color. Now, are there any questions in between, by the way? So let me switch over to my main screen and see if there are guys online. Is it different in color if you use a Fresnel or soft light like a Rotalux? There can be a huge difference in modifiers. For example, you can have a modifier that gives you a really nice soft quality of light, and you can have a modifier that gives you a more harsher quality of light. The color itself, I just said there can be a difference, and that's true. If you smoke in your studio, you actually have nicotine. And that is a terrible, terrible thing for modifiers, because it will actually make it more yellow. If you shoot a lot outside in the sun, it can actually also yellow your modifiers. So the best thing to do is normally there should be no color difference between modifiers, otherwise you could never mix those modifiers together. So what the best thing is you can do, and this is a little bit tricky, make sure that you use a color checker or a gray card and shoot your different modifiers against that gray card and check if they're all the same. If they're not, don't panic, don't jump out of the window, whatever you want to do. Just make sure that you know this. And it can be pretty cool because, for example, you can make the skin look great from the front and use slightly more bluish lights from the back, giving it a little bit more of a blue tint in the highlights on the side of her face. So that can be very interesting. But normally every modifier should be approximately the same color temperature. Now, I don't know for cheaper strobes, but I know the Elengram system is very, very good in that stuff. So it gives you a really good quality. Let me see if there are more questions. And again, this is an in-between episode. And I forgot something. Oh my, of course we have to do this. So we have to make sure that you guys know what you're watching, right? So let me see. We have our bumper, because it's a digital classroom episode, right? So we have to do that very quickly. I will be right back. And there we go again. So now you know that you're watching Digital Classroom. And these are the in-between episodes we were talking about a lot. We want to do this more. We want to give you guys as much information as possible. And these in-between episodes are absolutely awesome for that, because I can answer some questions and it's not a 2-hour show where we have a model and where some things go wrong sometimes. So I'm a little bit more relaxed now. Okay, yay, you're working. Yes, I know, I am working at the moment. That's why you see this stuff. And that's also the cool stuff, of course. Okay, so another question. I'm colorblind, I have to trust my color checker. Yeah, sure, you have to trust that color checker, because if you're colorblind, and by the way, there can be people that can be colorblind, that can make awesome images. You can look at a good friend of ours, Joe Grimes. He is colorblind, but he makes great, great images. And just trust that color checker, it's pretty good. Okay, now the addition to the question was actually, is it a different color if you use a Fresnel or soft light like Rotalux? And now he changes it to, I meant hard light is more saturated than soft light. Okay, there we go. Yes and no. Hard light isn't more saturated than soft light. It does give you an image where the colors more pop. It's not like you just touch the saturation slider in Photoshop and you can go from soft light to hard light by just adding saturation. That's not true. That's a misunderstanding. It's absolutely not that way. What happens when you use harsher light quality is the contrast is higher. Now, color is three-dimensional. You have hue, saturation, and luminance. That's the three-dimensional color space, meaning if you have less luminance in a color, it will drift more to the saturated side. So if you're in Photoshop and you have this really intense red color and you want to make it even more red, more intense, just lower the luminosity of that color. You can do that with curves. And you probably know this already. If you open up Photoshop, you start pulling on those curves, you can actually see that the colors get more saturated. So that's one part. The thing about harder light is it's not only that luminance, saturation and hue, it's also that the light quality itself has more contrast. And that's not something that has to do with that three-dimensional color space where you actually use your color checkers, of course. It's more the way that the light performs. So without a doubt, harsher light is more saturated, but it's not more saturated. You know what I mean, right? The colors pop more. So that's it. Okay, another question is, greetings from New York City. Yes, greetings. And by the way, after Photoshop World, yes, we are at Photoshop World again in Orlando, we will be doing a workshop in New York. We just finalized everything and I just don't remember the date. It's, I believe, on the 30th of March or April. I think it's April 30th. It's now on our website. And we will be in the studio from our good friend Nieuw from Nieuwkerk. So it's going to be an awesome studio. We have an outside location, roof access, and the studio. And the coolest thing ever, we have Nadine with us. And of course, Anna Week. So with Nadine, you can actually expect that you get a lot of information about styling. You get a lot of information about posing the model, how to work with your model. And we are gonna do a lot of outside stuff, roof access, and of course in the studio. So that's gonna be one awesome workshop. And we are opening now our registration also for the early birds. So make sure you check out my website, www.frankdorov.com. And you know what? I'm just gonna show you very quickly because that's something that I can do. Let me go here. And there we go. So go to my website and there you can actually see that we have our opening for New York. So make sure you check that out. Okay, let me see if there are more questions, and otherwise I trust that we are online and everything is working. But guys, by the way guys, how is audio and video? Is that okay? Because on YouTube I still have a black screen, but I see all the questions coming in, so I guess we're online, so that should be no problem. Okay, now we have another question, and I love those questions, so keep them coming. As long as the questions are here, I'm online. What I noticed when I trust a color checker profile, the prints come out a lot yellow. Okay, this is a good one. So you use a color checker, so everything should be right? Not really. Now, bear with me. The color checker makes sure you have the correct profile in your camera. The printer, that's a whole different ballgame. So the printer also needs a profile. So let's say you have the color checker, you go into Photoshop, you use ProPhoto RGB or Adobe RGB or sRGB, whatever you want. At the moment you start printing, you have two options. Let Photoshop manage colors or set it yourself. Now, my advice is always do it manually. Now, the thing that you have to do is you have to select the printer and the most important thing, the paper type. Don't forget this. If you print, set paper type, because on that paper type, that's actually your profile. So if all the images come out to yellow, you probably have a problem there with your color management. Now, some people do the weird thing that as soon as they are done editing, they actually store the image with the profile of the printer attached, which is weird. And don't do that. You just store it as sRGB or Adobe RGB, and then you print, and then you select the profile. Okay, now somebody else says, okay, I'm going to do the other one. Sean, I'm going to do your question in a moment, don't worry. Paulo, sRGB is the profile required by the print house. Yes and no. Some print houses have their own profiling. Some print houses demand that you do PDFs. I don't know why, that's ridiculous, but okay, sometimes they do. My advice is very simple. If you use a print house that you never used before, send in an image of a color checker. And you can make a custom profile from that. You have that profile, and that's where you calibrate your files on and send it to that print house. The problem is if you use a cheap print house, things will vary like crazy. In other words, you will get it back one day perfect, the other day it will suck. Even if you have the same run, it can be totally different. Sorry for the word suck, by the way. It can be totally different. My only advice, if you use a print house, is just send it in decent sRGB. They can mess that up. And, well, sometimes they even mess that up. But normally sRGB you can mess up. So yes, for print houses, put it on sRGB and send it in. The other question was, what is the best way of getting out of a difficult color situation? You know, when perhaps you've had to pull the shadows, perhaps you're working with mixed lighting. Okay, Sean, there's one tip, and this is a running joke with all of us here. If you really mess up a shot, and it looks terrible, but the shot is great, make it black and white, add a lot of noise and contrast, and you have instant art. Of course, I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. It's pretty much how sometimes we work. Now, don't think that all the images you see online from me that are black and white, I actually messed up. But let's say that 10% of those images, I really love the image, but I messed up. So we made it black and white and it works. The other thing that's incredibly important when you're doing printing, because I have another question for that, is when you are using that mixed lighting, use it to your benefit. Learn your lighting, learn your color balance, learn what color does, because this is the most important thing. The main problem with a lot of photographers is they don't understand lighting, they don't understand their gear, and they don't understand women, if they shoot women. Now, that last part I can't help you with. I tried, and you just have to make the best of it. The first thing, learn lighting. That's your language. That's the language of photography. Make sure that you understand what lighting does, how shadows work, and color, because a lot of people underestimate color. Every light source has its own color temperature. You have tungsten lighting, you have fluorescent lighting, you have LED lighting, even LED lighting that you can change. And that's the thing. If you know what to expect, you're never ever in trouble. What I love to do, for example, is, let me see, I don't have one here, but I love those little lume cubes. And those are pretty blue. If you combine them with tungsten light, that's incredibly red. You get this beautiful blue hue on a model's face and those red tungsten lights, because you are exactly in the middle of that. And that gives you a beautiful image. Now, if you don't know what you're doing and you mess that up, you try to correct for one, you get this awful hint of you in your images. So learn that lighting, learn that color, and then you can mix light sources very easily. Now, if you know that color and you don't want those mixed light sources in, this is where it gets interesting, because you know what's going on, you know you can correct it. And that's something called CTO gels. Now, if you use small flash, look at the Rogue Expo Imaging website, for example. They have CTO gel correction filters, and they're awesome. You put them on your small strobe, and you can actually make those images look great again in color. So you can combine, for example, tungsten lighting with strobes, and they both have the same color temperature. For me personally, I love that tungsten light is a little bit more red than the strobe, so I love to mix those two up. On the other hand, most of the times I know what I'm doing, so I know where to place those light sources, so they're not, for example, both in the face, which gives you a really weird look, so don't do that. Okay, more questions. I did in sRGB came out the best comparing ProPhoto and RGB. Yes, when you do, this is again about printing surface. I think Paolo is about printing surface. Yes. The printing surface, just try it out and use sRGB, because yeah, that's terrible. And printing houses, it's always hit and miss. That's why we use, if we do printing, we use OIPO or FIFO Labs, which are both absolutely awesome in continuity. Okay, agree, after all, people love black and white in weddings. Yes, they do, don't they? And if you mess up, just deliver it in black and white and tell them that normally it's an extra fee, but for them you did it for free. Okay, another one. Hey, YouTube is working fine. Facebook has a second lag on the sound. I don't know what's going on with Facebook. I kid you not, we've had a lot of problems with duocasting. If somebody out there and who knows anything about Wirecast and duocasting on Facebook and YouTube at the same time, please contact me via email, info@frankdorov.com. Help us out, because it's driving us nuts. One day it works, the next day it doesn't. And when I go only on YouTube, it works. When I go only on Facebook, it works. When I duocast, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and it don't change anything. So please help us out if you know. We have more than enough up speed, so that shouldn't be the problem. Okay, hey Paul, how are you? I know Paul. Question 2. Let me start with question 1. Normally I work in Adobe RGB in Photoshop, but is it better to work in Pro Photo RGB? Paul, I can't tell you. Depends on yourself. If you want to have total control, you want to see what you're doing, use Adobe RGB, and I will show you why. I have this monitor set up, and this is an Adobe RGB monitor. So it's a cool monitor, it works like a charm, and well, I can see exactly what I'm doing if I'm using Adobe RGB color space. So that means that works great. I still prefer to edit in Pro Photo RGB because I never know what the future will be. So maybe the future will bring us monitors that are even bigger in color space. And when you have a color calibrated workflow, sometimes with certain printers you actually have a little bit of benefit from a bigger color space if you print out, for example, on the Epsons or the newer Canons. They also support that little bit more color gamut. So Pro Photo RGB for me works, but Adobe RGB is great. I wouldn't edit in sRGB. I think that's a color space that doesn't give you all that nice hues and saturations. Let me see. Question 2. I use a color checker, but 9 out of 10 cases I think the skin is too yellow. Is there a reason for that? 9 out of 10 cases means one case is correct. I'm just kidding with you. How old is the color checker? If the color checker is older than a year and a half, change the color checker. Also make sure that if you use a color checker, it doesn't mean you don't have to do white balance. Now watch this. This is a color checker. You can create a profile in Photoshop, Lightroom, sorry. But make sure that when you create a profile, you always select one of these 3 little dots for color balance. So always, even if you have a correct profile, make sure you do color balance on one of those. Now what I do is, I'm going to show you that tonight too, is I will actually load my profile and then I will do the color balance. If it's still too yellow, check the monitor calibration. And again, also with the monitor calibration, if you have a color analyzer that's older than 2 years, replace the color analyzer. I'm sorry to say, those color analyzers only work great for about 2 years because they're gel-based, and gel-based actually, well, isn't that well. Okay, let me see. We have some other stuff here. I use Coil Up. I don't know Coil Up, but it should be really good. And really, I bought mine about 3 years ago. Yes, color checkers, after a year and a half, replace them. And I know that Spider, for example, they also have a sort of color checker, but I don't like their software that much. I like the X-rites way better, and that's not because I'm a Colorati. I actually became a Colorati, meaning I'm a partner of X-rite, because I like the X-rite products better. I'm never for sale, so when I tell you something, trust me, it's from the bottom of my heart. It's the stuff that I use. So the Spider, the one thing that I did like about the Spider was they actually had this little indicator which turned over time. So you knew that if that indicator was a certain color, there we go. Now we have to replace it. And the color checker doesn't have it. But for the fun part, just take your color checker to the store and compare it with a new one. You will be shocked because the new one will look absolutely different from one that's 3 years old. Now, how can you keep it as well as possible? I only use it in the studio. I don't take it outside with me. And if I take it outside with me, I don't leave it open in the sun because that's asking for problems. If you go like, hello sun, come on, it's a color checker, it can take it. That will destroy your color checker within a few hours. So maybe within a few minutes because UV lighting isn't that well. Okay, so that's it for now. I think we're doing pretty well on audio and video. Again, if somebody has any information on why YouTube and Facebook doesn't play nice together, please let me know and we'll work something out. Maybe you can help us out with that. For now, I'm signing off. We're gonna have some dinner and then I will be back at 7 o'clock our time, and it's now 5 o'clock our time, so in 2 hours time we'll start the official broadcast for X-rite. And trust me, you don't want to miss this. If you already like this one, you're absolutely gonna love the other one. So thank you so very much for BenQ and X-rite making this possible. Now, one question for you guys, and this is from the bottom of my heart. We love to do this kind of stuff and we want to do more. We want to do way more, but we need a little bit of help from you guys. And you're gonna get a lot back from us, trust us. If you go to this website, patreon.com/Frank Doorhof, it's like a tip bar. What you do is, a lot of people ask us, can we support your work? Can we do something for the channel? Whatever. Can we help out? Yes, you can. And we don't want you guys to go overboard, but via Patreon you can, how do they call it? Well, let me put it this way. You can give $1 a month, or you can give 25 or 50, whatever. We have several packages. And you get a lot of goodies back for that. For example, we have a closed Facebook group where you can chat with us, show images. We do portfolio reviews there. You can ask questions. And of course, we also have, for the higher ends, we also have a one-on-one Skype call once a month. So that's cool. We don't have anybody in that program yet because that price is pretty high. So I don't think that's going to work very well. But the lower packages, like $5, $10 a month, you really help us out with that. And again, we do everything for you guys for free. We're not going to switch to YouTube Red. We're not going to do anything else. We're going to stay free, but we want to do more. And because we don't have fiber internet, we have to do everything via 4Gs. So if you go over to Patreon, we really appreciate that. The other thing that you can do, and actually I also appreciate that very much, is just go to our videos webpage and get some of our instructional videos. Because if you like this stuff, the instructional videos get way more intense and it's way more fun. And the other thing, and that's 100% free, is just go to youtube.com/Frank Dorhoff if you're watching this on Facebook, and make sure that you subscribe to our channel. That really helps. Okay, that's all for today. Actually, that's not all for today, because we will be back tonight for much, much more. So see you tonight at 7 o'clock. That's in about, well, a little bit less than 2 hours. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them on social media or on Facebook. Facebook is social media. And we'll see you tonight. Hey, bye, guys, and have fun.